The name Ubercastel, in fact, is the German for Surcasti, so this castle has the same name as the town above it. If you look closely, you can see just below the castle there a line through the trees. This is the old road that ran from Surcasti down to the north towards Elance, crossing the river below the castle on this narrow bridge. So as you can see, the castle would have been very well situated to defend that route. If you look north from the castle, this is a bit of the view you'd have, looking towards Elance. The only parts of the original castle that still remain are the main tower and a little bit of the outer wall, which we'll take a look at later. The main tower is this tower that you see in front of you. The white building beside it is actually the St. Lawrence Church, which is currently using the original tower as its bell tower. Although this church building is new, the records and archaeological evidence indicate that there has been a church on this site in connection with the castle for a very long time. From what we can understand from the archaeological evidence, there has been a settlement on this site where the church now stands and where the castle once stood since about 100 BC. The settlement was fortified with a wall around it, and eventually what happened was as people moved up the hill and settled, they created a new town, this town here, called Surcasti, meaning above the castle. Castle in this case referring to the old fortified settlement. This is a view of the town of Surcasti as it is today. It was nobles from this village who built the Ubercastel castle and took their name from it. The Ubercastel family and the Castelberg family were one and the same. We know this because they use the same coat of arms symbol. Surcasti has really only one main street, with houses on the one side and farms on the other. Interestingly enough, in Switzerland, farm families live above their barns. Not all of the Ubercastel family lived in the castle. Many of the family lived in the town, and those that did came to be called de Vig, or of the village. They were farmers and probably worked on farms similar to this one here. It's important to understand that in those days you usually got your family name based on where you lived. If you were in the village, you were called de Vig. If you actually lived in the castle, and this is a view of the castle's north from looking down from the village. If you lived in the castle, you went by the name Ubercastel. The same thing holds true for the name Castleberg, as we'll see later. So, just to review, originally there was a settlement here, which was fortified. Later on there was a village up the hill, which was called Surcasti or Ubercastel. Still later, the lords or leading men of that village came and built another castle on the site of the old settlement, and that family took the name Ubercastel because they lived in that castle, which is this castle right here in front of us. This is a close-up of the main tower. This is the original tower of the Ubercastel castle. It's about 10 meters by 10 meters. The walls are about 1.5 meters thick, so the space inside, the actual living space, would have been about 8 meters square. This is one of the windows looking out of the castle. Narrow slits at the outside. They would have been much wider inside, as we'll see later. The individual stones in the castle are quite large, some of them up to about 1 meter long. This tower would not have been all of the castle. There would have been walls surrounding it as well. To the right of the tower here we see the St. Lawrence Church again. If you were here on a Sunday, you could attend a service. I believe it's a Reformed church. Now inside the gate, next to the church, you can see the wall dropping off there to the left. Here's the church. Another look at the main tower with some more window slits, as well as the roof covering the tower. Down below you can see the door knocked into the tower for modern access. The original door to the tower was actually here on the back side of the church. The beams that held up the platform outside the door would have gone into those holes there in the wall underneath the door, and it would have been accessed by walking a set of stairs up the side of the tower. This door was knocked into the wall to allow access in modern times. The wall, as you can see, was a good meter and a half, yard and a half thick, at least, maybe even 2 yards at some points. This is the ground floor, which would have been a basement for the old original castle, and the church is using it as storage for lumber. It's an electrical room, and their lawnmower and stuff is in here as well. And these stairs are obviously modern in origin, but something very similar would have existed in the original castle. This tower had 4 levels, and each level would have been connected by some sort of stairs or ladder, as we see here. There were windows on every floor, and we'll take a look here at how deep they are, going through the whole wall, wide on the inside but narrowing to just a very tiny sliver of light at the outside. So obviously the inside of the castle would have had to have been lit with some candles or something, otherwise it would have been too dark to really live in. Now, as we're reaching the 3rd floor, we can stop and take a look back down at the 2nd floor and the stairs to the 1st. Look up here. This level is a lot brighter because it's the level that the door is at. Let's take a look outside. You can look down and see the river running to the west of the castle there. It's quite the view. Looking back to the north, down the valley towards the Lance, that's what we would see as we look over the roof of the church there. As we turn and continue our climb towards the top of the tower, you need to remember that this would not have been the only inhabited part of the castle. Obviously there were outer walls that enclosed a courtyard. There were other buildings as well. This would have been the main defensive stand had the castle been under attack, but there certainly were other areas that were lived in and used. From what we can tell, based on the style of the castle construction, it was probably built in the 11th or 12th century, so in the 1100s at least. Here we are at the top of the tower. This bell tower is obviously of modern origin. The view down from here, this is looking out down towards the river, and just off the point there, here, we find some of the original stones of the outer wall. That's what these are here. We're just at the edge of the castle grounds. That's the church back up that way. We're looking south here. Again, looking south back at the church. In a moment, we'll turn around, take a look down at the river, and down the valley towards Elance. As you can see, the land drops off rather sharply, over 200, close to 250 feet to the river below. The river on the right is the Valser Rhine, and the one joining from the left is the Glenner. Together they continue on as the Valser Rhine on down this valley to Elance, about 6-7 kilometers away. The Castelberg Castle, that we'll take a look at in a minute, is also down this valley, up above this river, about 5 or 6 kilometers away. You can't see it from here. It's behind some of the folds of the hills. What a fantastic view they had from here. And then this is taken down on the ground at the, on the tip of the promontory, far lower than the actual tower. From the top of the tower of the castle, it would be a much better view. Unfortunately, since this video was taken during the winter, you don't get the vivid colors that you would in the summertime. Before we move on to the next site, here's a few pictures. This is the black and white of the main tower. This is a color shot taken from the bridge to Urs. This is a close-up of the actual church, St. Lawrence Church. This is a view of the cemetery out behind the St. Lawrence Church. Here we are up above the castle, looking down from Surcasti again. That's a view of what it would look like in the summer. One last view back at the castle as we head down the valley towards Elance. We now move to spot number 2, where the Castelberg Castle is located. This is on a hillside just south of Elance, near the town of Leuven. Looking at the other map, you can see it's to the north of Surcasti. Here Looking south west of Elance, you see the town of Leuven. Looking southeast of Leuven, you see the ruins Castleberg. And there's a close-up of those ruins just above the river.